We got some nice setup over here. We got tea, nice view. We got pillow. We got a book. We got a phone, and let's see. Okay, okay. Average lifespan of Shih Tzu is 10 to 16 years, mainly living around 13 years on average. Some well cared for Shih Tzus can live into the late teens. Few factors that influence their longevity include diet and weight management. Okay. How were Shih Tzu bred, and what is their origin? Ancient, somewhat mysterious origin, but it's generally believed to have developed in Tibet and China 1,000 years ago. Crosses between the Lhasa Apso and the Pekingese reportedly bred small lion-like dogs and gave them as gifts to Chinese emperors. Name Shih Tzu actually means lion dog in Mandarin, referencing both their appearance and the Buddhist association with lions as sacred animals during the Ming Dynasty. Very interesting, very interesting. They do look very interesting. Like if you remove their hair, their face just looks like a chimpanzee. Or I forgot, somebody actually used a specific word for that. I forgot that. Ming Dynasty, and especially Qing Dynasty, Shih Tzus became prized companions of Chinese royalty. They were in the imperial palace and were bred selectively by palace eunuchs to achieve specific looks, particularly the flowing coat, short muzzle, and small size. They have incredible hair. Short muzzle and small size, the dogs were so treasured that for centuries they weren't allowed outside the palace, and exporting them was forbidden. The breed nearly went extinct after the fall of the Chinese imperial system during the upheaval of the early 20th century, including the Communist Revolution. Fortunately, a small number of Shih Tzus have been brought to England in the 1930s, and the modern breed descends from just 14 dogs that became the foundation stock for nearly all Shih Tzus alive today. One Pekingese was reportedly added to the line in the 1950s for certain traits. The breed was officially recognized by the Kennel Club in England in 1946 and by the American Kennel Club in 1969. Today, Shih Tzus were primarily as a companion dog, retaining the affectionate, regal temperament that made it a favorite of emperors. Wow. What are the traits of this dog? We also watched some really good Rick Rubin yesterday. Uh, David Sunrise has come up with the Rick Rubin podcast, and it's very interesting. I think and Rick Rubin did talk about that. Hey, if I want to go deep into something, if I pick a topic, I really go deep into that. I think it's incredible. It's very important to start. It's very important to go deeper and deeper into something. It's very important to be in nature. I'm really happy that we are over here around lots of trees. If you haven't seen the trees, here are the trees, or not trees, one tree I think. Oh no, trees, they're trees. We're on the trees, we're on the nature, and just like my home in Vancouver, we had a really massive fake plant. Why? Because around all these, so interesting. I was missing out on the texture. I was really missing out on the texture. In Vancouver, abroad, things start feeling really bland because in India, things are not same. One block at the other block, things are not same. But over there, they started because they're manufacturing really fast. They're making things. They're making. It's like commodity when houses become commodity, when buildings, even luxury condos become commodity. They are just producing the same shit again and again, again and again, and it started feeling really bland to me. And now that I'm here, I like it. I like it. There's so much variety. There's so much variety. Look at all this. Um, I like it. I like it. The weather is really nice today. It's 27. This is amazing weather. This is amazing. I wish this stays forever. This is what we need. Oh yeah, Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin was talking about that. Hey, just being obsessed, be going deeper and deeper into something, finding this one idea and testing it and testing all. Like if you are into coffee machines, then read all about coffee machines, go as deeper as possible into coffee machines. That is that is something interesting. That is something that will make a lot of hmm, have a distinctive set of physical and personal traits that make them popular companion dogs. Physical traits: they're small dogs, typically weighing between 9 and 16 pounds and standing about 8 to 11 inches at the shoulder. Yeah, it's also interesting to see how David Senra has moved on from the, let's say, the harsh, uh, let's go for it, let's do it, let's crush it, like all the hardcore founders to Rick Rubin. Like he's covering all of them, which is good, which is good. You want the entire spectrum. No one has the right answer. Even the founders that he's talking about, we need them. The world needs them. It might not be the way how you want to live, but the world needs them. It might not be the way how you operate naturally, what your true nature is, but the world needs them. And that is valuable because the reason he's covering them is because they did something. They made something happen. And it's interesting to think about jobs and everything. Like when you are going through an identity crisis, that hey, what do I care about? What do I know? And then you talk to other people, and then you realize that wait, all you do is maybe sell soap, but you have revolved your life around it. You believe that it's so normal that that's the only way how you can operate, and you think that other people are crazy because you can't understand their job. It's just so interesting. You start thinking that you have figured the life out because you you have found the comfort, you have found the structure, you have revolved your entire life around this idea that yeah, I sell soap, and that's normal, which makes sense. Which makes sense. Uh, but when you're going through an identity crisis, no identity crisis, when you are figuring things out that okay, how do I want to interface with the world? Because it's really important. It's really important that people can. You have to make it very simple for the world to interface with you. You have to put one word out there. You have to put one word out there. Like right now, intelligence deployment sounds really cool, but still, intelligence deployment is not something I can talk to my grandfather about. That hey, what do you do intelligence deployment? So it's like, oh yeah, I help you use AI. I help you use AI. I help you use AI so you save time, make money. I help you use AI so you save time, make money. It's very important to find these very simple ways to interface with the world so that you can you can start you can the people know when to think about you. People know when to think about you. People know when to reach out to you. People know how to interface with you when in a specific conversation. How like where should they go? They remember you. They think of you. Yeah. We need to make the interface very simple. Most recognizable feature is a long flowing double coat that can be styled long or trimmed in a short puppy cut for easy maintenance. Coat colors vary widely, including gold, white, black, brittle. Liver combinations of these, they have a short, flat muzzle. There's also something interesting that's going viral. So let's see. Here's Hampton. Okay, this one. Meteorological applications. PhD. Okay. Actually, what does a day looks like? Let's see. Let's see. What does a day in the life of a PhD in meteorological applications and quantitative finance looks like? It's a pretty niche intersection. A PhD researcher working at the crossroads of meteorology and quantitative finance would typically focus on how weather and climate data can be used to price financial instruments, manage risk, or generate trading signals. This field exists primarily because weather has massive financial implications for industries like energy, agriculture, insurance, and commodities. Here's what a morning typical day might look like. A day often starts with checking overnight weather model runs from sources like the ECMWF, European, and GFS, American models. Researcher might review how this is actually so interesting. Like uh, okay, this is very cool. Weather signals could be used for financial instruments. Again, very relevant. How do you use AI to interface with reality, and that helps you think better. That helps you. Yeah, I think that is cool. Okay, and we can look into all the retweets over here and all the fancy jobs that they have mentioned and just see that, hey, is this a job that you would want? Is this how you would want to spend your time? Are these the problems that actually interest you? I'm interested in these problems, like how the weather signals, how they could be used as financial instruments, okay? Or how do they affect everything? Price financial instruments, generate trading signals. Meteorological applications in quantitative finance. Meteorological applications in quantitative finance. Okay. The researcher might review how forecasts have shifted and what that implies for relevant markets such as natural gas prices ahead of a cold snap or corn futures during a drought. This is followed by reading recent papers from journal like the Journal of Financial Econometrics, Quantitative Finance, or Weather and Forecasting, looking for new methodologies in time series analysis, stochastic modeling, or machine learning applied to weather derivatives. Late morning. Core research work usually happens here. This might involve coding in Python or R to build models, perhaps developing a stochastic temperature model for pricing, heating degree day, or cooling degree day derivatives, or backtesting a strategy that uses precipitation forecasts to trade agricultural commodities. Pandas for financial time series, and libraries like PyMC or TensorFlow for probabilistic modeling are common. It's so interesting. You don't have to know. All you care about, how do we use weather signals to generate trading signals? How do we use weather data to generate trading signals? That's it. How do we use weather data to generate trading signals? To price financial instruments, to generate trading signals. Use weather to invest. Use weather data to invest. Simple. Use weather data to invest. Now that you have a very high level idea, use weather data to invest. So important. It's so important. A lot of conversations with peers. This could mean chatting with someone from the atmospheric science department about ENSO patterns and then discussing copula models with a finance colleague over coffee. A person who's studying this would definitely take, like, ideally make life decisions based on their career, because now they would know that, okay, where do we see the best weather, and based on that, where do we see the best weather, and based on that, where do we where do we invest, and where do we not only invest money, but we invest our life, invest our time, so that based on that you will move your family around and be like, hey, let's move over here, let's move over here, let's move over here. This block might involve meetings with writers who often come from both departments, one in finance, one in atmospheric or environmental science. Student might present results on, say, calibrating a jump diffusion process to historical temperature data, or discuss how to handle non-stationary climate series with global warming, which is a real methodological challenge. In pricing, long dated weather contracts often also often include running large simulations, training models on HPC clusters, or cleaning massive reanalysis datasets. Like era 5, late afternoon. Depending on the stage of the PhD, time goes toward writing papers, preparing conference presentations for venues like the EMS annual meeting or the Bachelor Finance Society. Depending on the stage of PhD, time goes toward writing papers, preparing conference presentations, or working on dissertation itself. Some students collaborate with industry partners such as reinsurance companies, energy trading firms, hedge funds with the desk, so there might be calls with industry contacts. Continue working into the evening, especially when simulations are running on or deadlines loom. Atmospheric science as part of their funding, recurring themes throughout the week. Weather is non-tradable, so traditional no arbitrage pricing doesn't fully apply. But the derivatives are priced in incomplete markets, which leads to interesting theoretical work involving utility-based pricing or actuarial methods. Dealing with climate change is a structural break in historical data, making it hard to use long time series naively. Bridging two very different academic cultures, atmospheric science tends to be more empirical and physics based, while quantitative finance is more mathematical and probabilistic. Mathematical and probabilistic common research topics in this space include pricing, weather, derivatives, temperature, precipitation, wind, snowfall, futures traded on the CME, catastrophe, bond modeling, renewable energy forecasting, and its impact on electricity markets, crop insurance pricing and usage using satellite or radar data as an alternative data for commodity trading. It's an unusual, fascinating niche with career paths into either academia, energy trading firms, reinsurance companies like Swiss Re, Munich Re. Okay, let's run this. Use precipitation forecast to trade agriculture commodities. How it works in practice. Which forecast traders use. How rainfall anomalies map to yield models for corn, wheat, soy, cocoa, coffee. Building a strategy yourself. Go for me. Go run this thing for me. Very interesting stuff. Voix les citations. Okay, I think I also saw this one. PhD in stochastic volume. Wall trading boutique that clears more than its country of domicile. information. Good. It's a project that's generally tractable for an individual, but most of the real work isn't where beginners expect the signal. Rain is bad for cocoa, good for corn is already priced in. Your edge has to live in one of the three narrower places, having a better forecast than consensus, reacting faster to forecast revisions, modeling the price impact better than others. Pick one or two crops to start. Good candidates: US corn, soybeans, but the weather market is concentrated in June, August around pollination, pond fill, coffee driven by Brazilian frost and drought events, cocoa, cocoa, where 60% of supply comes from Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. So the weather signal is geographically clean. Wheat is more complicated because winter and spring wheat have different critical windows. Production concentration makes the signal less noisy than soybeans. Forecast NOAA-GFS is free and decent. ECMWF is gold standard but paid for raw access. OpenMedia offers free API aggregating several models. Critically, you need forecast archives. What was predicted N days ago to backtest properly. RFI from Copernicus chirps. NASA Power all free for prices. Paid services like bar chart or NASDAQ data link for ground truth on the demand side, USG, NASS, and the monthly WASDE reports, which are themselves market moving events. Naive version, weight grid precipitation forecast by a crop area mask. Aggregate over the crop's critical growth window compared to climatological normal. Better version, read the update. This is closer to how actual weather desks operate. Use ensemble spread as a confidence read and look at the tail of the ensemble distribution. Markets often react to the United percentile bad outcome more than to the mean, especially as a critical growth window approaches. Look ahead bias is the killer. They have physical market intel from their operations. Specialist hedge funds compete in the same space. Heuristic as an individual is in the time horizons or niches they don't prioritize. Longer horizon seasonal trades, less traded contracts, or systematic execution on signals the human traders ignore. Okay, what do we have now? Rue du Rhône is the main street running. Rue du Rhône is a main street running through the heart of Geneva's financial district, and Geneva is one of the world's most important physical commodity trading hubs. A huge share of global crude oil and refined products trading is structured through Geneva-based firms, including giants like Vitol, Gunvor, Mercuria, and Trafigura, as well as many smaller boutique trading houses. A boutique typically means a smaller, often privately held trading firm, sometimes specializing in a specific region, product, or trade flow. Traders arrive early. Geneva sits in a convenient time zone overlapping with the end of the Asian session and the full European day. With the US opening in the afternoon, the morning starts with checking overnight price action in Brent and WTI futures, Dubai swaps, refined product cracks, and freight rates. Traders scan overnight news, OPEC Plus headlines, geopolitical developments in the Middle East, Russian or Venezuela export flows, US inventory leaks, refinery outages, and weather events that might disrupt shipping or demand. Bloomberg, Refinitiv, Klepper, for tanker tracking and Vortex are typically open across multiple screens. The desk gathers, often with the head trader and analyst operations and sometimes risk management. They review positions P&L from the prior day, market color from brokers overnight, and the day's trading plan at a boutique. This meeting tends to be informal and fast, and teams are small and everyone wears multiple hats. This is when physical trading activity picks up. A typical day involves talking to brokers and counterparties on the phone and over chat. Specific cargoes available for loading or delivery. Boutique might be trading, for example, West African crude grades, Mediterranean fuel oil, or Russian origin products being repositioned. Negotiating terms, price differentials to dated Brent or other benchmarks, loading windows, delivery ports, quality specs, demurrage terms, payment and credit, hedging, physical exposure on the paper market, typically through ICE, Brent, futures, swaps, or options. The interplay between the physical and paper books is the core of the business. Chartering desk of fixed vessels, often Aframaxes, Suezmaxes, or VLCCs, depending on the route. Lunch. Geneva trading culture takes lunch seriously. You frequently meet brokers, ship owners, or counterparties at restaurants near the Rue du Rhône or along the lake. These lunches are part social, part information gathering. The market in Geneva runs heavily on personal relationship and trust more than in screen-driven futures trading. Traders react to price moves, adjust hedges, and continue working on physical deals. This is also when a lot of the analytical and structuring work happens. Working with operation to track loading and discharge progress on existing trades, talking to the credit desk about counterparty exposure since physical oil trades involve massive ticket sizes, coordinating with trade finance to ensure letters of credit are in place since most cargoes are financed by banks like ING, Societe Generale, Crédit Agricole, or UBS. Reviewing arbitrage opportunities. Can a cargo loading in the US Gulf be profitably delivered to Europe or Asia after freight financing and hedging costs? The focus shifts to wrapping up loose ends, finalizing contract terms with the back office and legal team, updating position reports, and preparing for the next day. Traders often have one more round of calls with Asian counterparties as the morning begins. Client dinners, broker entertainment, and industry events are frequent. Geneva hosts numerous commodity conferences and formal gatherings, and being seen and known as part of the job. Small teams, big trades. Boutique might have only 5 to 30 people, but individual trades can be enormous. Each person has significant responsibility and direct P&L visibility. Physical paper interplay. Unlike a pure futures trading desk, the edge comes from understanding the physical market. Who needs what, where, when, and what quantity, and using paper markets to hedge and finance. Regulatory and compliance pressure. Sanctions compliance has become enormous, especially post 2022. Company majors by being faster, more flexible, and being better connected in specific niches, whether that's particular crude grade, a specific region, or a type of distressed cargo. Physical trading is capital intensive. Wow, I have two different ideas. What are some interesting products you can sell to the physical commodity trading hubs of Geneva. What would the Upanishads say about this job? A wonderfully unexpected question. The Upanishad, the philosophy core of the Vedic tradition, composed roughly between 800 and 200, don't speak directly about oil trading, of course, but they offer a rich framework of examining any worldly profession, layered, neither simply condemning nor endorsing such work. Priya, the pleasant, the immediately gratifying, and Shreya, the good, that the pleasant, the immediately gratifying, and Shreya, the good, that which leads to ultimate well being. What are some modern jobs that fall into the category of Shreya? Sharia, not Sharia. Shreya. Whisper Flow, you gotta be good with the Upanishads. Whoa, 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 whoa. Where did my thing go? What? What? Oh, the Bishop sages would probably want to complicate before answering. The tradition is clear that Shreya is less about which job one does, more about how one lives, what one is oriented toward, and whether the work serves truth, reduces suffering, and cultivates the inner conditions for wisdom. A teacher driven by ego and a trader animated by service could, in principle, swap positions in the Shreya Priya hierarchy. That said, certain modern professions structurally lend themselves to Shreya because their daily activities point toward the good rather than merely the pleasant. Here are some examples organized by the dimension of Shreya. They emphasize work that reduces suffering directly. Physicians, nurses, hospice workers, and palliative care specialists confront the realities of illness, aging, and death that the Upanishads insist we must face honestly. The Katha Upanishad begins precisely with a young person encountering death and refusing to look away. Those who tend to the dying do this daily. Mental health professionals, therapists, and counselors similarly work at the place where human suffering is most acute and most amenable to compassionate presence. Humanitarian workers, those running refugee programs, disaster response coordinators, and public health workers in underserved regions embody the Upanishadic teaching that the self is in another is the same as the self in oneself. Their work is a practical expression of Tattvamasi, work that transmits knowledge and awakens insight. Teachers, especially of young children, occupy a place of high honor. Humanitarian workers, Upanishadic teaching that the self in another is the same as the self in oneself. Mental health professionals, therapists, counselors similarly work at the place where human suffering is the most acute and most amenable to compassionate presence. Occupy a place of high honor in the Upanishadic tradition. The texts themselves are framed as transmissions from teacher to student, and the Guru Shishya relationship is considered sacred. A kindergarten teacher shaping how a child relates to truth, kindness, and curiosity is doing something that Upanishads would recognize as profoundly worthwhile. Researchers and scholars pursuing knowledge for its own sake, particularly in fields oriented toward understanding consciousness, nature, mathematics, or the deep structure of reality, align with the Upanishadic love of Jnan. The sages were, in their way, the original natural philosophers asking what underlies appearance. Particularly in fields oriented toward understanding consciousness, nature, mathematics, or the deep structure of reality. Aligned with the Upanishadic love of Jnan, the sages were, in their way, the original natural philosophers asking what underlies appearance. Librarians, archivists, and translators who preserve and transmit human wisdom across generations and cultures perform a quieter version of this same function. Work that protects life and the conditions for life, ecologist conservation, thought of something. Let me send that. All right, let's see. Ecologists work that protects life and conditions for life. In the way the original natural philosophers asking what underlies appearance. Librarians, archivists, and translators who preserve and transmit human wisdom across generations and culture perform a quite a version of the same function. Ecologists, conservation biologists, climate scientists, and those working on environmental restoration tending to what the Isha Upanishad calls the world enveloped by the Lord. The Upanishadic vision is profoundly non anthropocentric, in places seeing the same essence in all beings. Work that preserves ecosystems, protects species, and restores recreated land has clear Shreya character. Farmers practicing sustainable agriculture, especially those reviving traditional and regenerative methods, participate in what the Vedic tradition has long honored: the conscious cultivation of food as a sacred act. That Tatiya Upanishad has an entire meditation on food, Anam as Brahman. Environmental restoration attending to what the Isha Upanishad calls the world enveloped by the Lord. Book that creates beauty and elevates consciousness. Artists, musicians, poets, writers whose work help artists, musicians creates beauty and elevates consciousness. Wow. Okay. Oh, Google Calendar has a new logo. Wow. Google Calendar has a new logo. Alright, 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 alright. Artists, musicians, poets, and writers whose work help others see more deeply, feel more truly, encounter the sublime, do something the Upanishadic tradition values. See more deeply, feel more truly, work that reduces suffering directly, work that transmits knowledge and awakens insight. Understanding consciousness, nature, mathematics, or the deep structure of reality, aligned with the Upanishadic love of Jnan, Gyan. Sages were, in their way, the original natural philosophers asking what underlies appearance. Create beauty, enter flow. Okay, I like this one. Let's enter flow, create beauty, elevate consciousness. We started with Shih Tzu, and look where we are now. Look where we are now. Incarnate sublime do something the Upanishadic tradition values, though it would distinguish between art that flatters the senses and art that points beyond them. Encounter the sublime do something the Upanishadic tradition values, though it would distinguish between art that flatters the senses and art that points beyond them. Art that points beyond them. I really like. It's so interesting. I really like the. I really like the. I really like the setup. So much art over here. So much art. Alright, let's see. We will distinguish between art that flatters the senses and art that points beyond them. A musician playing devotional music, poet wrestling with mortality, or a novelist illuminating the inner life would qualify. Art that points beyond them. A musician playing devotional music, a poet wrestling with mortality, or a novelist illuminating the inner life would qualify. The tradition recognizes refined aesthetic experience. Refined aesthetic experience is a new relative or spiritual experience. Architects designing spaces that elevate human dignity. Wow. Urban planners creating cities where people can flourish. Craftspeople making things of lasting quality also fit here. A musician playing devotional music. A poet wrestling with mortality. A novelist illuminating the inner life would qualify. The tradition recognizes refined aesthetic experience as a near relative or spiritual experience. Architects designing spaces that elevate human dignity. Urban planners creating cities where people can flourish, and craftspeople making things of lasting quality also fit here. Work of contemplation and spiritual guidance. Wow, wow, wow. So interesting. So interesting. Screen is so dirty. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. Monastics contemplate as spiritual teachers, chaplains, and meditation instructors. What the Upanishads consider the highest work, helping others turn toward the question of who they really are. The sage Yajnavalkya, the seer Uddalaka, and others in the Upanishads were essentially professional contemplatives, and the tradition holds this life in the highest regard. Work that serves justice and human dignity, public interest lawyers, public defenders, judges committed to fairness, Human rights advocates and those working on prison reform or against trafficking participate in the Upanishadic value Satya in Dharma. The Brihadaranyaka contains the famous teaching there is nothing higher than Dharma. Journalists committed to honest reporting, especially investigative journalists exposing harm done in darkness, serve truth in a society that often prefers comfortable falsehoods. Work of care, often invisible. Parents, caregivers for elderly relatives, and those who do the underpaid work of holding families and communities together perform something the Upanishadic tradition takes seriously, even though it less often names it explicitly. The householder path, Grihastha Ashram, is honored as one of the four legitimate life stages, and the daily care of dependents is part of its dharma. Social workers, community organizers, and those running small institutions like shelters, food programs, and addiction recovery centers belong here too. A necessary qualification. The Upanishads would resist a clean list. They would point out that a surgeon operating from arrogance and greed may accumulate worse karma than a trader giving generously, contemplating deeply, and treating counterparties with scrupulous honesty. The Bhagavad Gita, which inherits Upanishadic thought, makes this explicit. It tells Arjuna, a warrior, that his dharma lies in fighting his battle well and without attachment, not in fleeing to become a monk. The deeper Upanishadic answer might be the jobs most naturally aligned with Shreya are those whose daily texture pulls one toward truth, compassion, equanimity, and the dissolution of egoic grasping. But almost any work performed with the right inner orientation, with skill, honesty, non attachment to results, and remembrance of what one truly is, can become a path. And almost any work, including those on the list above, can become Priya in disguise if pursued for the wrong reasons. What do you do? It is who is doing it and why. Tell me more about this. So, here are the categories: work that reduces suffering directly, work that transmits knowledge and awakens insight, work that protects life and conditions for life. Conditions for life, okay. Work that creates beauty and elevates consciousness, work of contemplation, spiritual guidance. Work that serves justice and human dignity. Work of care, often invisible. Necessary qualification. Of all the categories on the list, this one sits in the most interesting position within the Upanishadic thought because beauty occupies an ambiguous space. This one sits in the most interesting position within the Upanishadic thought because beauty occupies an ambiguous space that can flatter the senses and entanglement. Deepen entanglement. Or can become a doorway. The tradition is alert to both possibilities, the metaphysics of beauty in the traditions. In the tradition. Oh my god. Okay. Okay.